Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Beaufort Business Banter, where we take a little time every single week getting better acquainted with local business leaders, folks who spearhead local charities, and, especially in this case, local elected officials. So I'm Will McCullough, and I'm the owner and broker in charge of Century 21 Coastal Town Realty, located at 83 Sam's Point Road on Ladies Island, and we are the sponsors for this program. My guest today is the wonderful Kevin Phillips.
Yes.
And Kevin is the mayor of the town of Port Royal, and you do a few other things as well. But thank you for coming aboard today. Good to have you.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk a little bit about whatever you feel like speaking about as it relates to Port Royal and your mayorship. Is mayorship, is that a word?
We'll go with it.
We're going to use
like
it.
Yes.
Your mayorship. But before we do that, let's spend a little time getting a little bit better to know you. So how long, and I don't mean at all to disrespect the town of Port Royal by articulating it this way, but how long have you been in the Beaufort area? And I'm defining the Beaufort area as from the Broad River to Fripp to out past Yemassee, our little section of the Low Country. How long have you been in here?
So born and raised originally in Georgia.
Okay.
Went to the College of Charleston, then Charleston School of Law. Graduated there in 2016.
Okay.
So I was in Charleston for about 7-8 years, and I'd visited Beaufort throughout that time. But then once I graduated, 2016, finally moved down here to Beaufort. And when I first moved here, I moved into a house over on Green Street in downtown Beaufort. It's actually like a little greenhouse right across the street from Washington Park.
Okay.
And so moved into that, lived there for about a year, and then moved over to Port Royal after that. And I've been in Port Royal ever since. So
excellent, really good. Let's talk about what you're comfortable sharing with regard to spouse, children, pets. Anything you'd like to share on that topic?
No, absolutely. Very lucky.
Now, by the way, I know the answer to this question very, very well. So go ahead.
No, and I'm very lucky and blessed in that aspect right now. So when I moved here, one of the first things I did was sign up and attend the Leadership Beaufort program through the Chamber of Commerce. I was graduating class of 2018. A young lady in that class was named Jennifer Sanborn at that time. That was we met and we started dating at that time. A couple years later, we took a little plane flight out of the Beaufort Executive Airport. We went up. It was a plane flight we actually won at a raffle around here at a charity event. And then we went up in the air, and it was beautiful out of the Beaufort, now the Executive Airport, but Frogmore. And went up there, and I asked her to marry me up in the airplane above Beaufort.
Holy cow.
And so she said yes. And then we got married February 20th, 2021. Yeah, I got that right.
Excellent.
And so, no, it was good. And we had a surprise wedding in our front yard in Port Royal on 12th Street, where we lived at the time. We invited all of our friends and family over for an engagement party. And then we surprised them and said, hey, everybody's here, and we're excited. It's a beautiful day. Would y'all be okay if we just went ahead and got married right now? Everybody went nuts. It was just one of the best days of my life. It was beautiful, and people still talk about it. They were like, "That shocked us." People were weeping. It was amazing. So we got married then, and that was like literally on 12th Street in Port Royal. Got married in the front yard of a house in Port Royal. Then fortunately we just had our first daughter, Evelyn McConna Phillips. We call her Evie, and she was actually born January 1st, 2024 at Beaufort Memorial. First baby in Beaufort County.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. So she was the first baby born in Beaufort County this year. So
yes,
that's
sir.
Amazing. That's
it
awesome.
was amazing. It was quite a shock. I mean, you're not thinking about those things, but when it happens, you're like, that was pretty cool. And the great thing is my dad's birthday is January 1st too. So she shares a birthday with Grandpa. Yeah.
Wow. That's easy cargo.
So like I said, I have a beautiful wife who's from this area, born and raised here. Beaufort girl, went to Beaufort High, grew up on Battery Creek, and her mom still lives, quarter mile down the road from where we live, in the house she grew up in, and just like I said, it couldn't be more blessed, and just thank God every day.
well, that's amazing. And just full disclosure, so I used to own, some of you who may know us, I used to own a martial arts school here in Beaufort for many years in the mid-90s through, and that's eventually evolved into becoming the Foundry, which we were talking about before this. But back in those days, in the late 90s, I had little kid programs, adult programs, and as you know, but just to share with the viewership, one of my very young students, I think she was 6 or 7 at the time, was Jenny Sanborn, who went on to become your wife. I think I gave Jenny her black belt. I think she was.
Yeah.
I know she was with us for many, many years. And her little brother, he's not little now, but Jesse was in our Pee Wee program.
Yeah.
He was like 3 or 4 and trained there for years.
No, I appreciate that.
I mean, no disrespect for whatever, but that's such a great family, such great people. You married up. So
I appreciate that.
Take it as it is.
No, I've seen pictures. She has some pictures. We were going through some old pictures, and I see some pictures of you at the training them and with them, and it was really cute. And like I said, and so thank you for teaching her how to fight, self-defense. You know, keep me in line. Absolutely, she's great. And just I do want to take a second and just say something to you. Thank you for all of that. Just that the time that you've invested in the community and invested in the youth in the community, when you see things like the Foundry and what guys like Abe are doing there and creating events and creating spaces for families and children, and you know that would not have happened without the work you did 20 years ago. So that's awesome. It just goes to show you never know when you plant a seed what it's going to grow into. So I just want to thank you for the work you've done for decades in this community. So
well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's great. I normally will ask somebody what's something about you that others may not know, but I'm going to I think I can think of something that answers that question. So my understanding is back in younger days, you were part of a band. I think it was a polka band, right? Is that what it was?
Yes.
No, it wasn't polka.
No, hard rock.
It was a band.
Yes, it was a band.
Are you sure it wasn't polka? Because I swear,
no.
I was looking at my notes, it was polka.
We had we tried some polka. They didn't. The crowd didn't like it. We just, you give the people what they want, you know. So yeah, but back in the day, it was really something another thing very fortunate and lucky to do. I was in, high school, was in a little garage band like so many people, and we're going to be in a band. And fortunately for us, we worked really hard and got good enough to where we, kind of got this little record deal with an independent label and went on tour did a couple tours. I've been to, played every state in the United States, in the continental United States, so 48 states, been to all of them. And that was a lot of fun. Got to do that for a couple of years, travel around the country with some really good guys, best friends, play rock and roll music. I'm lucky I survived.
Yeah. I bet.
But it was really good. And so, eventually the band kind of broke up and I went, okay, all right, I guess that chapter ends and move on.
I'm going to be an attorney and a political. Yeah,
I was like, I'll go to college now.
That just segues perfect, the whole thing. That's really cool. Excellent. Well, obviously, you have a lot of responsibilities as the mayor of the town of Port Royal. What would you like to share about what's going on in Port Royal or anything kind of, the floor is yours. What can you tell us about what's going on?
Or
what you'd like to see going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, Port Royal is, just, I think, at a really great spot in its history. I drove around on Saturday. I had some family in town and just drove around Port Royal on Saturday, and it was beautiful to see. It was bumping. I mean, I went down to Sands Beach. It had, it was packed. I will say right now, I know we've got some issues with the entrance to Sands Beach, and we're working on that to get that cleaned up. Mother Nature we always got to, fight that. She's always going to win, but we're going to do what we can. We love Sands Beach. So right now we've got some issues with the entrance that we're working on. But Sands Beach was packed. The boat landing was packed. People were on the boardwalk. I went over to Showring. People were there. Walking down the streets, you saw young families pushing strollers. You saw, people of all ages, riding around in golf carts, on bikes, kids playing in the park. And it was just a beautiful scene. I mean, Port Royal is one of those really unique places that, if you've got a family, you can come to Port Royal and really have a good time, and really for not that much money. I mean, you can come to Port Royal with a family, go walk on the cypress wetlands, check out the beautiful environment, see the birds. That's always exciting. The alligators that kids love. You can go down to Sands Beach, which is a public beach. We've got our boardwalk, we've got our tower, we've got our playgrounds and parks. I mean, so there's a lot to do in Port Royal for families and people, like I said, just overall of all ages. So it's a really great time in Port Royal. We're also, one thing that we're always working on is, of course, the port project that that's going on right now. We've got a partner in Safe Harbor, and they're a really good partner that they build a world-class marina, and so we plan, and that's going to happen in Port Royal right now. Just waiting on some permits. Anytime you go from no marina to a marina, as you imagine, there's a lot of loops you got to go through with OCRM permits and Corps of Engineer permits, and so we're going through that process now with them and learning a lot with that because this is the first time that's ever happened. It's not like we have a marina and we're updating it or we're repairing it. We're starting from scratch with that. So this has never happened before. This is a brand new thing. So we're learning that process, going through that with Safe Harbor. That's going to be amazing once those permits are in hand and we can start seeing some development there. So the port is something that we're always really watching and doing. But another thing that I'm really proud of our council that we've been is just taking the concerns and listening to the concerns of the community. One of the things when I moved here, and a lot of it came from my experience of living in Charleston for 8 years, and what I saw in just that time, how quickly it grew, how fast it grew, how quick buildings going up, and how radically it changed Charleston. And I'm not saying it changed it for the better or worse, it just changed it.
It changed it.
And so there's different opinions about that. And so when I moved here, a lot of people moved here because they called it, Little Charleston or something like this. I had people say, this is like Charleston 50, 60 years ago. And, we're not Charleston, we're Beaufort, and we're Port Royal. And Port Royal is very different. This place is unique. It's one of a kind. It's one of those places that has still got a lot of character, still has a lot of community. It's quaint. I mean, we did just pass 16,000. That's the estimate of our population.
Okay.
So that's a milestone. That's the largest population we've ever had. But however, it still has that small town feel. And that's unique, and people look for that. People enjoy that. People come here for that, and so we want to preserve that. And our council has done things, like we've just implemented a moratorium on large-scale apartment buildings, multifamily apartment buildings. We implemented our tree ordinance, which is meant to protect our live oaks and the natural environment around here. So we're really trying to listen to the public. And what do we hear from the public? We love this place. We love the environment. We love the community. We know we're going to grow, and that's okay. But let's make sure we grow in the right way.
We want to grow in a way that it keeps its soul.
Exactly.
That Forrest Gump meets Norman Rockwell feel.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
That's exactly what we want. Well, what you're articulating is literally something I hear every day. I mean, folks coming to the area, both specifically the town of Port Royal and, of course, the greater Beaufort area. But how you spoke about that is what the appeal is to here. So that's fantastic. Really
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I do real estate and have since those fighting days, so
Absolutely.
about 25 years here. Anything, none of this is scripted, but anything in general with regard to the market, whether it's hyper-local or a bigger picture that I might be able to expand upon or attempt to?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's always great just to get information out there.
Only like 5 people are going to see this.
That's good. Hey, well, hello, those 5 people.
Yeah.
Those are the smart 5 people.
Right. This is the sound of me not arguing.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So, but no, I mean, I think there's a lot of people wondering what they read these articles, and it can be very confusing. They're talking about these, court settlements coming down about seller agents. Now you can't charge commissions. Now you can, but and there's a lot of, if you go on the internet, you can find one source that says one thing and someone that says the complete opposite. So a little confusion of just kind of where you see the real estate market going here in the future. So
a couple topics. First off, I'm going to answer your last question first, which is where do I see the real estate market? Now, going from here in the future from a hyper-local perspective. One thing I always like to say is I threw out my crystal ball in 2008 because we ultimately don't know. But I would say that barring a complete collapse of our society as a whole, which I guess could happen, but barring that, folks, speaking in generalities, they want to be south of the Mason-Dixon line. They want to be east of I-95. They want to be close to the water. A lot of people are Florida out. It's just too Florida. Yeah. Folks, speaking once again in generalities, are flocking away from large urban centers and more restrictive states. No matter how somebody feels about that politically, that's a fact. Yeah. So, you've got Charleston, you've got Savannah, you've got Hilton Head. People like to be close to those things, but there's a huge portion of the buying and moving demographic that wants to be close to those but not in them. And they like that Forrest Gump meets Norman Rockwell feel of the overall Beaufort area. So taking the last part of your question, once again speaking in generalities, the overall Beaufort area has nowhere to go but continue to go up, both in demand, and I'm sad to say it, but in price point, because it's supply and demand and there's a finite amount of property here. That said, with careful stewardship of the market and how development is done, we can keep the Beaufort feel while allowing for people to also who want to be here. As far as changes in the market, I actually spent about 2.5 hours this morning working on training all of our agents at Century 21 Coastal Town Realty, located at 83 Sam's Point Road on Ladies Island. Little plug. Breaking the fourth wall for a moment. Yeah. But in any event, on these changes, and these changes nationwide are taking place actually August 17th of this month.
So 2 weeks.
And it's a very 2 weeks. So it's a big thing, and yet at the same point things are staying the same. I'm not being coy or evasive or intentionally being so, but to fully explain that to a consumer really involves a sit down and bases a little bit on their knowledge. But in speaking in generalities, like let's say you had a home for sale and you wanted to put it on the market. Before you could do that, you would sit down with a realtor, hopefully this one. But aside from that, you would sit down and you would discuss what they offer, what to bring to the table, how they're going to market your home, and you're going to come to an agreement. This is how you get paid commission. This is what I'm going to do. And then I can list to market your home. Well, basically, it's coming down from a settlement lawsuit against NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and the Department of Justice. The moral of the story is that's going to happen with buyers now, too. And what that means is if you're traveling to a town right now and you want to go look at a home, like, I'd like to see that, let's call a realtor. You call them, they meet you there, and you go on. What is going to be happening now is no realtor, not me, not my company, not the Beaufort area, not just South Carolina, nationwide, no realtor can open a door for you and show you a home until they have had a discussion with you about how commission works and signed what's called a buyer agency agreement, which establishes representation and explains to the consumer how representation works. So it's going to put an uncomfortable scenario in there for the agents and for the consumer, where they're going to have to be educated on, hey, this is how the process works, we're going to do this, and here's, you're going to have to sign this, and it's going to be an agreement of how things work. And we don't have a choice in it, but that's something. And then it's also the way commission is marketed. Up until this point, for the last 50 years, we've done a good job, I believe, as an industry, of showcasing and being open about commission. Hey, this is listed, it's paying out this much, this is what I make. Well, now, for some reason, that is no longer going to be on the MLS. If you want to see if I'm going to show you a property, it's no longer marketed what that commission is. I, as an agent, before showing that property, have to reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, what's the commission on this? What's it going to pay? And I have to make sure the buyer knows that, because the buyer may have agreed to a different commission. And we have to connect those dots. So the moral of the story, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of logistics that are being added to it. Overall, it's probably going to be good for the industry, because it's taking away confusion, and people are going to have to be educated from the very start. The downside is people aren't used to having that education. They just want to see the house.
Yeah.
Well, first we got to do this, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I didn't do that when I bought my home. Well, I don't want to do it either, but we're going to do it, or it is what it is. So I could elaborate on that until the cows come home, and just a cornucopia of great and not so great info.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, that's it. I would say, if you have questions about potentially buying, or questions about potentially selling, or maybe if you're thinking about starting your own career in the local industry and you want to get clarity on these topics, I would love to have the opportunity to speak with you. So my contact info is going to be up there, as is Mayor Cavins.
Yes,
so your stuff's going to be up there too. We've had a good conversation, at least from my perspective.
I appreciate it.
Any stones left unturned? Anything like, oh, dang it, I meant to mention this? Or
no, sir.
Do you want to bust out into a little polka rendition and show the folks?
Did you bring your recording?
I don't.
Oh,
I didn't. I forgot.
Okay. Well, next time.
Okay,
next time.
Well, you heard it here. He's on the record. He's on the record.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you to Will again for everything that you do and everything that you have done in this community. And
Thank you.
It really has, changed the community, and that's something great. So just thank you for everything that you do, and everyone out there that's watching this, if you haven't, come on down, visit Port Royal, where we're always cool, coastal, and far from ordinary. So. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I've already said my ending line and told you where we are. So I believe for this one, that's a wrap. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank y'all.